Okay, welcome everyone to this month's MSA Monthly Connect session. And I'm just going to start off with an acknowledgement of country. Before we begin, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and their continuing connection to our community. We pay respect to them, their culture, and to their elders, past and present. As many of us are watching in locations all around Australia and New Zealand, I would also like to pay our respects to the traditional owners of the country on which we all live and work. And I would also like to recognise their continuing connection to land, waters, and community and pay our respects to them and their culture and to elders both past, present, and future. So I'll start off today by introducing myself. Hi everyone, I'm Afia, and I'm currently interning at Microsoft as a cloud solutions architect in the security team. I have also just finished my bachelor's degree from Monash University. I finished my honours this year in software engineering, literally like a week ago. So my internship goes until the end of November, so I'm still working though, and I'm really excited for today's session and get to talk to some of you. Okay, so um, agenda for today. We'll go through some MSA reminders, and then I'll do a quick presentation on communication skills, and we'll finish off with a Q&A. So I'd love this to be interactive, so if at any point you have any questions or you want to share anything, please go ahead and put your hand up or share in the chat. So MSA reminders, if you would like to sign up to be an MSA student ambassador, which does have a bunch of cool perks, you can do so on the link through the link on the screen. And if anyone's interested, I can put that in the chat after as well. You can also browse the Student Hub, which has a bunch of interesting resources for students. And more free resources. I personally really strongly recommend the GitHub Student Developer Pack, especially if you are studying something technical. And even if not, it has a great range of free resources that I have used. So I strongly vouch for that. And all of these recordings, including this recording of the session today, you can find on Michelle's YouTube channel, and also a bunch of other talks as well. So look at Michelle's YouTube channel if you're interested. Okay. And yeah, we also have the technical workshops there as well, which are mostly Power Platform based, but sometimes there's a range of other topics too. And finally, we have the Microsoft Source newsletter. So I do recommend scanning the QR code and subscribing. You can come across a range of interesting opportunities, including training opportunities, networking opportunities, and just keep up with Microsoft, with what Microsoft is doing. And to keep up to date with the MSA and what we're doing, here are QR codes to our Facebook and LinkedIn groups. So I'll just hold here for 10 seconds in case anyone's scanning this, and then I'll keep going. Okay, I'll keep going now. So today I thought I'd do a quick talk on communication skills. And this is something that I'm very much in the learning process of myself. I often get a feeling this is a lifelong learning process, but nonetheless, I thought I could share a few lessons and experiences I've had from my internship, and I hope it's useful. So I'll start off with sort of communication skills. Why does it matter? What do we mean when we say communication skills? And what I find really interesting about this is and maybe some of you have observed this too, I find that a lot of people put communication skills on their CV, say, I'm a good communicator. Well, what does that actually mean and translate to? At work, I have found that I am communicating often with a range of different people. This includes direct team members, and these are people who I usually talk to day to day. I found that sometimes I'm communicating with people in leadership positions, whether that is my manager's manager, some other manager, and then that communication is slightly different. And on the other hand, sometimes I might be talking to clients. Again, that communication is different. It's more informational a lot of the time. Um, Sometimes I'm talking to external team members, such as even with what I'm doing on the MSA, I'm sort of have an MSA team to talk to who are not really in the security team that I'm a part of. And of course, other colleagues comes up all the time at work. So I have found that talking to these groups of people can require different things from me. And I have sort of tried to split this up into different sections that we can briefly talk about during the talk today. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about is written communication, and then I'll go on to verbal communication, but I'll stick to written for now. And written communication, I think, is so crucial for a range of reasons. Firstly, written communication is often your sort of first point of contact with another person, whether it's you applying for a job and uploading your CV, that's your written communication, or with a lot of tech jobs now being remote, often the first time I'm meeting someone or talking to them is through writing. So there's that. And of course, there's a huge series of different informational communication tasks that work requires us to do, all of which is written. So I have sort of split my like thinking about written communication in roughly three ideas. The first one is the actual quality of my writing, and the second two have more to do with making sure that others are absorbing and retaining what I'm saying and making that easier for them. And that's a bit of a lesson I had during my internship. But I'll start with the writing quality first. So, writing quality, I'm sure, is something we've all, discussed potentially at length before as students. What makes good writing? There's being clear, there's being concise, and getting straight to the point. So if you feel like you're not a good writer, or you could just improve a bit, and that is feedback you have received, um, something that often comes up is people not being sure how to improve their writing skills. And what I would suggest is firstly reading more and reading a variety of sources. This is a long-term game, but reading a range of different things can help you pick up other people's writing styles and adopt that a bit for yourself. And that can help you to improve your writing skills greatly. But what I have also found during my time at university is what really helped me to improve my writing for assignments and things like that is studying examples of what my teachers considered good quality writing. So this could be in the form of looking at a past assignment from a friend who had done particularly well in the writing criteria and looking at how their writing was different to mine. And I was pretty granular with my analysis, including things like looking at their particular grammar, um, looking at the sentence length they were using because I tend to write really long sentences that go on and on and things like that. And then consciously trying to adopt that for myself, I have found really useful. And you may be inclined to think that, this is very specific. Ultimately, we don't need to be brilliant writers or something like that. But I have also found that improving my writing skills has consequently improved my speaking skills. So I would say the two aren't mutually exclusive. And a lot of what makes good writing is also what makes good speaking. So it is still advice I would recommend. Um, and also, the way you write will sort of set the tone for who you are, and people sort of take that impression from you. So so what I'm referring to here is when I started my internship, for example, a big part of what I was trying to do is to get to know more people at Microsoft. And so I was sort of reaching out to people and saying, hey, I'm interning. Could we have a catch up so I could learn more about your work? And initially, when I started doing this, I thought to myself um, that to make sure these conversations sort of I know what I'm doing and I know what I'm looking for, I'd come up with a list of questions that I wanted to ask these people, and sometimes I would even send them the questions. I actually found, so I thought this would be productive, but I actually found sometimes this was counterproductive because what happened is the other person would join the meeting and they would just go through that list of questions and we wouldn't talk about anything else. And it didn't feel like we really got to know each other. There wasn't really a meaningful relationship building, which naturally in one meeting, how much can you really have? But it didn't feel organic, which makes sense because I had, essentially defined a structure, um, partially in fear of sort of joining and being awkward and not knowing what to say. So, that sort of set the tone for how I was as a person in terms of being structured and goal-oriented. And that's just a story I wanted to share. I hope that's helpful in some way. Another quick thing I wanted to share in terms of writing, and I think this is relevant anytime you're doing any sort of reflective work, and this can include writing your CV. This is that I something I was reflecting on recently is to just say sort of the facts of what happened as opposed to a story of a story centering myself surrounding what happened. And there's exceptions to this, but I will make my point first. So, for example, I had a tendency, I noticed, to if I had been given a task and then I was writing back to my manager discussing how it went, I was writing a paragraph going, so I experienced this, and then because I tend to be this way, I did this, and then this, and um, notably, he never actually said anything about that, but I felt like I was writing quite a bit, and I think the reason I was doing that is because a lot of these things I'm doing for the first time, I was a bit nervous about it, and it was a way for me to comfort myself, um, but actually, I think it was potentially taking up a bit more time on the other person's end than was necessary. And it's just clearer for me to get to the point and say, okay, I did this, this happened, then this happened. Next time I'm going to do this, the end. And potentially that comes naturally to you, but it wasn't coming quite so naturally to me. So it's something I really focus on trying to do. The next 2 points I'll sort of make together, reminders and clarifications. Something I found very quickly into my internship is that people are so busy. And because of that, I can't just sort of say something to them once and move on in terms of maybe there's something I need from them. And I need it from them within 2 weeks from now. So, I might send them a message and say, um, hi, so and so, hope you're doing well. Um, Regarding thing X, please send me thing Y by this date. And then that is what I would sort of say to them. And then the date would come around and they hadn't done it yet. And this is for a range of reasons. They have a lot to juggle. But so what I realized is that I could be a super clear communicator and have made my point really well, but if there's 1,000 other things that someone is trying to manage, it will still be hard for them to remember that. So to, set up a check-in, even to schedule a meeting with someone when I really need them to do something and then use that meeting to make sure they've done it. These things were really helpful to make sure I could get my work done in a timely fashion. It's basically helping them to help you. So what I'm really trying to say here um, is that effectively, even if you are a clear communicator, you will probably need to do those reminders and clarifications because of all the other things that are going on. Um, I also quickly wanted to mention clarifications. So ideally, when you are sending some communication out, if people are making a lot of clarifications, that would suggest that it's potentially not a clear message you have sent out. Um, if you are experiencing that, there's a few things I would suggest. So try not to do what I was doing early on in terms of sending out super large chunks of text. Try to keep it to the point and even highlight or bold the main points. And another thing I consciously try to do is I try to start any messages I'm sending out with exactly what I need from the other person right at the start. So it's really clear for them from the get-go. So that's sort of what I would do to reduce the volume of clarifications that need to be made. Naturally, making a clarification isn't inherently a bad thing. That goes without saying, but just something to keep in mind. I'll go on now to talking about verbal communication quickly. So, verbal communication I found at work has mostly been for me split into two sort of separate things. There's just speaking with my colleagues, and that's in more sort of casual meetings, more just day to day. And then there's actually presenting some information, whether that's to a customer, to other colleagues, and those two require two different skill sets. So with speaking, I found that as we were sort of talking about earlier, similar to writing, um, the, the qualities of what makes a good speaker do have quite a bit in common to the qualities of what makes a good writer. Again, being clear, being concise. And I would emphasize here that I have found that as unique from writing, the way I'm speaking to others and what I'm saying to them makes a bigger difference to the kinds of relationships I can build. I have found that preparedness is sort of my best friend in this situation. I would say that I am a pretty shy person on my own, so starting an internship at Microsoft with so many people I haven't met and going to work events, personally, I found it really nerve-wracking. But I still wanted to go and meet the others. So I, it might sound a bit funny, but honestly, I tried to go in prepared as I could. It helped me feel more confident. So what kinds of things did I do? Prepared in terms of just having a structure in my head of how I might converse with someone in terms of saying, hi, how are you? But then what happens after that, you know? So introducing myself, asking what team they're in, what they enjoy about their job, and little things like that. It might sound so obvious, I suppose. But when I'm nervous, these things really don't come to me. And I tend to just go silent. So if any of you experience some of that, that's something you could consider. So when I say preparation, I don't just mean for a meeting, though I certainly do mean that. I also mean for those sort of social interaction kind of events, but for meetings as well, um, I have found that it's really helped me to, before every sort of meeting I'm going to that I know I will be discussing in, to come up with a series of questions I'd like to ask or dot point exactly what it is that I would like to share. That way, when I'm in the meeting, I'm not necessarily overwhelmed by all of the new information, which I sort of was at the start because it was new to me. But going through that preparation process, I could really take the time to anticipate what might come up and then um, respond accordingly. Having said that, the flip side of this is something I was talking to my manager about even this morning is he always sort of tries to tell me to not be reluctant to tell people that I will just get back to them and there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to have all the answers on the spot. I think it's just a change from, um, I guess, my university environment to work. Uh, that's all it is. But yeah, again, something to keep in mind. So as you can see, we're talking about speaking, but none of that was actually about the actual speaking as much as the preparation. But I think that doing the preparation will help you to find your own voice and be a better speaker without even having really opened your mouth. But of course, verbal communication goes beyond what you've actually said. There's being a good listener, there's having good body language, there's reading the room and making adjustments, which I am trying to get better at as well. There's all of these elements to it that I think slowly start to fit together. And one of the things I've been trying to do that hopefully in the long term will help me improve these skills is to sort of set reasonable goals for myself that I think um, I feel comfortable striving for that still help me to take steps forward. So, for example, one of the goals is to, um, in meetings I go to that are more discussion based, when someone asks a question, to give myself a few seconds to pause, really think about it, and then answer. And I try to do that once or twice every meeting, which is a step up for me. And this is as different to what is my, I guess, first, um, my, my initial feeling. My initial feeling is if someone asks a question to sort of go, do I know the answer? No. Okay, don't say anything. But then what ends up happening then is I haven't put myself out there. I haven't met as many people. And even if I don't know the answer, asking a question can help me learn faster. So I felt like it was holding me back a bit, and that's why I wanted to do this. So I hope that could be something that helps you a bit too. Um, and also presenting. Presenting is something I'm doing right now. And part of the reason I wanted to do these presentations and more presentations at work in general is because my communication is something I wanted to improve. And again, I found the presenting skills to be very different to the just sort of speaking one-on-one skills. And I have found that for presentations, something I found to be really critical, though it depends on the presentation, is the ability to be a bit more dynamic. So to gauge how your audience is feeling and to be able to tailor your content accordingly. And again, what helps me to do this the most, I would say, is preparedness and sort of thinking about what does my audience actually want from this presentation? What are their interests? What questions might they have? And also asking colleagues who have done similar presentations before, what their experience has been, has also helped me to prepare. That way, when I'm doing something for the first time, I don't necessarily feel like I'm going in blind, even though I haven't done it before. And I guess just in general, a mindset I try my best to um, sort of believe in and embody when I'm doing these things is to value showing up and having a go more than doing it perfectly because I won't do it perfectly and that's okay. But showing up at least gives me an experience which sort of not doing something because I'm afraid of not doing it well enough doesn't. So I hope that can be helpful to you too. So I want to finish off and summarize with a quick bit of with three sort of general tips. How do I improve my communication? The first thing I want to refer to is online tools. I didn't know these existed until this year, but if you're having a meeting on Teams, you can actually turn on a speaker coach in your settings, and at the end of your meetings, it will give you a report saying things like, you spoke a bit fast. You could have used more inclusive language here and here. And it's also, some of this feedback is real time. So it can serve as a good reminder for you if you are, for example, someone who speeds up speaking when they're nervous and things like that. And these tools also, I know there's also an integration of that with PowerPoint. So if you're practicing for a presentation, whether it be for uni or for work or anything, you can turn on the speaker coach on PowerPoint and rehearse your presentation and again get that feedback, which is really helpful. You can, sort of do that in the comfort of your room or wherever you want. And it's something you can integrate. And by doing iterations of that, you can see if the feedback is changing and so see if you are, improving in real time. Some examples of tools. Um, I I actually don't know any specific ones beyond what I just mentioned, Marie, in Teams and PowerPoint. But I'm super happy to have a quick look after the talk and send through a link. The next thing I would suggest is asking for feedback. And I think the reason asking for feedback is helpful is because I feel like certain things about the way I speak, I wouldn't have even picked up unless someone else told me. So every now and then, when I know I'll be speaking at a meeting, I'll ask a colleague who's going to be there to let me know how I've done after the meeting. And something I found particularly productive is to specifically tell them to give me feedback on, for example, my tone or my pace, or do I sound too nervous? Do I look really hesitant? And also anything else they've noticed. So that is something I would really recommend. I have even asked a colleague to sort of tell me how I appear at a meeting where I'm not presenting. It's just a discussion because I was curious about how I appeared to my other team members, and that's something I found really insightful. So it's something you might as well. And the last thing I would suggest, which I touched on earlier as well, is goal setting and reflection. So, as with anything else, don't be super hard on yourself. Set goals for where you would like to be and then make them incremental. So it's just a little step you're taking at a time toward improvement. And every time you do something to sort of have a go at meeting that goal, reflect on it and sort of, think about what worked well, what didn't. Do I need to adjust my goal? Like anything else, there's no reason you can't get better at this. And that is all the sort of presentation I have for you today. I do hope that was helpful. Does anyone have any questions for me about the presentation or anything really? We're here till 12:15, so I'm happy to take questions.